back check. I had to reposition my bareback pad a little bit. And then we will be off. Of course, the camera only picked up his butt. I'm trying to wait for him to quiet down. He gets quite excited around the mounting block. Like, he's like, where's my treat? Where's my treat? And thankfully, this is the only time where he gets overly excited about treats now. During riding is during the mounting. So I will wait for him to relax, calm down, and then I'll give him a low value treat. Just to get his jaw moving a little bit. And this is the first ride that we've had since we have had a tooth specialist, like, correct his teeth. He had, even after floating his teeth twice in the past year, he still only had 50% mobility, I think to the left, and then 80% to the right. So he was only chewing to the right, and it was increasingly difficult to bend him properly to the right. So his left side was very tense. But now it's easier. He's moving into the contact, moving forward down. I was starting to feel a little bit like, why isn't my horse relaxing and going forward down as much? My students are. I'm giving the same direction. What's going on? But it turned out, he was just he had very much of a locked up TMJ, and he was starting to use a lot of under neck muscles, which was making his neck look very thick, which was not good, but thankfully we are moving past that. Found the one specialist in the entire state who will do the teeth properly. And I'm not knocking veterinarians. They have a lot to deal with. They have a lot to learn. But there are specializations that veterinarians can go and have, and dental is one of those specializations that they can study more into and get certified for. Just kind of like being like a cardiologist or, or things like that, or an endocrinologist. Like you get your base degree. You can either be a generalist and just be a general vet, or you can start specializing. It's up to you. But here we have a nice forward down. I am holding on to his mane a little bit with the outside, and it is always outside hand, because the outside rein at this stage of training is just going to exist with a little bit of tension if he moves into it. So like, I'm not collecting my rein on the outside, it's just going to exist at a certain length. I will let it go if he reaches forward down into it, but that I will take that hand and then hold a little bit of mane, only because, my abs are getting better, and it's getting easier, but my abs still need some work, and I do not want to fall behind the movement if and when he decides to push forward quite a bit. He didn't have a whole lot of impulsion today, but he tends to have a lot of impulsion, and I don't want to penalize that, and I don't want to get out of balance. So I will just hold on to the mane a little bit. Also, if he spooks, with young horses, sometimes you just can't necessarily always trust them not to spook. So, other reason why I will have my hand on his mane. But he's been doing good. He had good forward down, which is the whole purpose of working in the round pen today. But my inside rein is the only active rein that I have right now. I'm not concerned with bend, I'm just concerned with moderate balance on the circle, and then I'll start asking for transitions. And then reward transitions and relaxation. So he had a good transition there. During this session, I am moving past the I'm going to treat for the transition into I'm going to treat for the sustained trot. Revan understands these things because you can see I'm no longer treating for the transition into the walk or a sustained walk. He has internal motivation, like intrinsic motivation to do that. He understands what I mean by move forward. So we have moved past that. And again, we will get the trot into there and move past that. And then we'll only be treating for canter transition. So it's just a gradual moving from extrinsic motivation to intrinsic motivation. That's where the R plus R negative comes in. R negative humane R negative relies on intrinsic motivation to be your big motivating factor. And the R negative, which is taking away a stimulus, which is your leg, when they do the thing, is a way of communicating when you already have intrinsic motivation. But gaining that intrinsic motivation and getting them to feel good about what they're doing is the name of the game, and that's where a lot of trainers get hung up. But he's doing some decent transitions. He's a little like, come on, Mom, I kind of like want to do them, but then I want to have a lot of power into them. He's watching the other horse do trot canter transitions, so he's like, I want to do trot canter transitions too. I'm like, no, not the canter today. We need to be balanced at the trot first. But he is sensitive enough to read my seat, so if he tries to go into a canter transition, which he has a couple of times just this ride, I will continue balancing as if I was moving into a trot, and then he will move out of that transition and stay in the trot, and then he shakes his head because he's like, but that's not what I wanted. And I try to manage frustration and giving treats for doing the thing, even if he's shaking his head, is good because that gets him to calm down and think, okay, I'm still getting rewarded for something and I just need to relax. And he eventually does relax in this session. I'm using kind of a wide inside rein, mostly because he's used to that with our in hand, and I am trying to transition him into a more reasonable angle for the ring. I'm also allowing him to do whatever kind of balance he wants with support from an existing outside rein that does not collect, like that does not move about. He knows he knows how long that is, and it is predictable where he can do that, unless he is moving forward down into contact like he is, and then I'll allow it. And he's doing very good. It's not the most active trot, but that's okay. He's giving me a trot that I can reasonably sit today. And the easier it is for me to sit the trot, the easier it is for me to make it more active. Today I realized that all of my Pilates have been paying off, and it was way easier to sustain this trot than it was back in January, the last time we rode. his stops have been very good. They're very precise. They are pretty precise. I am using my seat and my voice mostly to get him to stop. And then trying to get him to not knock over the camera was another challenge. But I'm mostly using low value rewards just as a communicative factor. I'm saying, okay, you did a great job. Let's keep doing it this way. Later, I did move on to the high value rewards. Like I said, today I'm looking for relaxation, moving into forward down, and good transitions. And as you can see, he is moving into forward down very nicely at the walk. And he is moving into my contact very nicely as well. And, you know, a lot of people are like, you can't get any contact with Bitless. You can, and they will move into contact with Bitless. You just have to give them the chance and prepare them properly for it. You can get a horse to, you can teach a horse to move with a Bitless just as well as you can get a horse to move with a bit. If you preserve the sensitivity of their nose, and they will be just as sensitive and you can communicate just as easily. But we are also working on precision steering, and he's doing a very good job with this. Something that we had trouble with the last ride. But everything seems to be coming together in his brain right now. Which is what we want. And him bringing his head up during the transition is okay. When we get a nice sustained trot, we will eventually move into the shoulder in on the circle and then start really trying to say, okay, do we really want your head? I really want your head down during this time. And this is how I'm going to communicate that. Here we're going to do a little bit of backup. And then my hip got off balance. So he dropped his hip, which dropped me, and then he went into a turn on the forehand, which it kind of is it shows you how sensitive he is. Like, his hip dropped, so my hip dropped, and then he responded. I don't think he put it together that he was the contributing factor behind this, but that's okay. Something that I also have to be aware of as a rider. And he's almost giving me a nice forward down at the trot. But he's not quite in enough balance for that to hit today. Going to do a little halt work. I actually didn't expect to, but he kind of volunteered. And halt work is very good. See how he is moving into the contact? I did a couple of half halts, and he moved his head right down, which I was actually, frankly, kind of surprised. I've been trying to work on that for a long time. But he finally eclipsed today. Now we're going to do a little bit of bending. That's nice. I would like to get to be, more on the vertical and more in front of the vertical during this time. But again, this tension that I have to kind of do the body work session for is still there, so the fact that he's doing this is really good. As you can see, I'm losing his tension a little bit. He's getting a little bit more tense, I guess. The other horse in the arena is doing more canter transitions, so he was just like, we need to do something. He's getting a little tired, as you can see. More trot transitions, and then we will call it a day. As you can see, he's getting a little cranky. He's like, let's do something more. Let's do more. Today. As a rider of a green horse, or a trainer of a green horse, there is something that you have to understand, and you have to understand the horse's limits, even if the horse doesn't understand their own limits, and understand that just because they might be offering something, if it is outside of their limits and will only cause them harm, you have to be the responsible party. It's like having a kid that thinks that they're invincible, like, I want to jump out of the tree. It's like, well, it's 12 feet high, probably not a good idea. You're only little, so you really, it's different in an adult horse where they're offering something and like, okay, let's see if we can do some challenge. And then the adult horse has a lot more time and preparation in them, hopefully at the time. But here, they tend to be a little bit less responsible, so you have to be the responsible party as the rider. And I don't think I clipped this part out at all. But it didn't last very long, so. Again, very good forward down. And that was the end of our ride. So YouTube people, thank you for watching. Patreon people, we are going to take a look at a little bit of School Halt